Why is spirituality important for mental health and well-being? Spirituality is increasingly recognised as an important factor in well-being and in mental health. Across the globe, it is often a central and defining force in the lives of many people and their communities. A belief in something that connects us and makes life meaningful can support our daily journey and also be drawn upon to help us cope at times of stress, loss and trauma. Why is there a resurgence in interest in spirituality for health and flourishing? For a while, there were Western ideas that rejected the importance of spirituality and religion in health. However, research has been identifying that turning to the divine or a guiding spirituality for support, solace and protection assists some individuals and communities to manage difficult life experiences and significant losses. Many communities throughout the world have special rites and rituals to accompany those who have suffered bereavements or traumas through their recovery. Mourning rituals around the world acknowledge that it can take time to readjust after the death of a loved one. In our Australian context, we have become aware how important a spiritual reconnection to country and the dreaming is fundamental in recovery from the traumatic effects of colonisation and disruption for many of our Indigenous Australians. There's also increasing evidence that beliefs and practices are an important part of daily health. For example, research has shown that having a relationship with God confers positive benefits in terms of psychological health and well-being. So, individuals and communities derive benefits from their spiritual and religious beliefs and practices, and healthcare providers are now becoming aware of how this can be an important part of fostering the growth of mental health and recovery journeys. So now, professional organisations recognise that their members need to be able to inquire about and support the spiritual frameworks and practices that consumers might use to support their well-being, growth and recovery. This is part of the information gathering or history taking that healthcare providers now do to understand the context of a person's life and the resources that may be available to them during recovery. This is not about pigeonholing someone about their faith system or their denomination, but about trying to understand their experience and framework in the big picture of connectedness and belonging. Interestingly, sometimes the journey of recovery itself involves spiritual themes that might be a first experience of spirituality for the consumer or carer. Questions can arise as part of a recovery journey from illness or trauma. Why am I here? Why is there suffering in the world? How can I contribute? How can my life be more meaningful? How might I come to forgive or be forgiven? For a fuller recovery, consumers and carers and healthcare providers need to be open to these potentially spiritual or philosophical parts of our health journeys. Similarly, for some, times of trouble lead to questioning of their spiritual frame. And at times, part of recovery will mean taking the time to repair, reconsider, or rebuild the spiritual part of an individual's life. For some, a confrontation with serious illness means that they doubt the benevolence of God or of life, and this wounding may need healing. For some, their psychotherapy or counselling can be provided by a spiritual or religious advisor within their cultural framework, and this can feel safer and more acceptable to some. What are the frameworks that can help us understand the connection between spirituality and health? There are many emergent frameworks that might help us explore and understand the connection between spirituality and health. One such frame is attachment, where we can use the notion of a spiritual attachment to God as a parental figure providing safety and comfort. We've spoken about this important area of developmental psychiatry in another video. This framework can fit with religious views where individuals and communities believe in a personal relationship with the divine, such as Christianity, Judaism and Islam. Research has been done in this area to show that for some, the felt attachment to God can function at times as a buffer for disturbed human attachments, but also sometimes is in parallel with them. It can sometimes be a place that psychotherapy can inquire into in order to understand how a person sees themselves connected to others, including the divine. So for some, being able to return to connection with God through prayer or ritual or a felt sense of God's love and understanding can be a first reconnection to others after stress, distress, loss and or trauma. We are also beginning to grapple with the notion of a spiritual self. Psychiatrist Dan Siegel, for example, is pointing out that we are all brains, minds and bodies in connection. Our mind is not alone. And he would add a connectivity to the spiritual domain and to the wider ecology of our planet. The notion that our spirituality is an aspect of ourselves does not necessarily imply a religious frame. Spirituality can be secular in nature. But this area of connection with self and others appears an important aspect of human well-being. Recovery philosophy talks about a connected life and a contributing life, both aspects with potential spiritual resonances or underpinnings. What is the overlap between spiritual practices and those that foster recovery and well-being? We are seeing a strong trend in mental health to research and use practices that began in spiritual or religious settings but now have strong neuroscience and physical benefits. Mindfulness, meditation, breathwork, yoga, and affirmations are all practices that have strong and long histories in religion and spirituality and have successfully entered the world of mental health care. We are now researching the role of prayer in people's lives. The ability to soothe, regulate and settle, to forgive and refocus, and view self and others with compassion are capacities fostered by many spiritual and religious practices and can be part of a person's road to recovery.